Um, I'm Sanjay Prakash, and thank you very much for joining us. We're really excited to be here to be able to talk to you and introduce you to MFAT as an employer and foreign affairs and diplomacy as a career. So you might be here because you're just interested in hearing a little bit about what MFAT does. And then there are others that may be here who have really got their heart set on MFAT, and you might be looking for a bit of advice on the recruitment process and get a bit of goss on how you can make your application kind of the best it can be. And we'll be going through both of those scenarios here, giving you a real brief rundown on us, the number of policy officers here who have joined us, hear a little bit about our stories, and then go through the recruitment process. And we're going to put aside a good chunk of time for question and answers at the end, so you can talk to us about what it is you would like to hear, and we will have a panel here of people who will be able to answer all your questions. So firstly, I'll just quickly introduce myself. As I said, my name is Sanjay Prakash. I've been with Foreign Affairs for about 2 years now. So the recruitment process for me was not all that long ago, so I have a pretty good understanding of that. Prior to working at MFAT, I was a warfare officer in the Navy for about 6 years. And prior to that, I was actually at Canterbury University, where I studied political science and diplomacy there. So that's me, and I'm going to pass over to my colleague Rachel to introduce herself.
Kia ora koutou, ko Rachel Spencer toko ingoa. Lovely to be here with you all today. Thanks for taking the time to come and chat with us. So as Sanjay said, I'll quickly introduce myself. I've been at the ministry for 9 years this year. I'm currently a senior policy officer in our COVID coordination division. Prior to joining MFAT, I did undergrad down in Dunedin, law and politics, did a bit of travel overseas, and then did my postgrad in international law at Auckland. I spent a year in a public policy consultancy firm in Wellington before joining MFAT as a graduate in 2013. So throughout my 9 years at MFAT, I've had some fantastic experiences and rotations. I started off in our environment division on our Antarctic desk, and then moved into our Americas team, covering our trade and economic relationship for Canada and the US. I was then fortunate enough to be posted overseas in our High Commission in Ottawa for 3 years, coming back to New Zealand in September 2020 and joining the COVID Policy and Coordination Division then. So yeah, the career at MFAT's been fantastic so far. It's exceeded my expectations, and would be very happy to have a chat and answer any questions you might have about my experience in the recruitment process. Thank you all. I'll pass over to my colleague Talia.
Kia ora koutou and talofa lava, everyone. My name's Talia Siatanga, and I'm also a UC grad. I'm the baby of the panel. I just started at MFAT 3 weeks ago. Prior to MFAT, I was living in Christchurch. I was basically like born and raised there. I did the classic law and arts, and majored in philosophy, political science, international relations. And then I went on to do the ILAC course, the International Law and Politics Master's degree. So I finished that last year. My pathway into MFAT was that I interned last summer in the corporate legal unit. And then I did my master's, and then I went through the application process last year. And I've just started in PAC-MM for the Pacific, Melanesia and Micronesia division in on the Vanuatu and Kiribati desks. So I'm doing some bilateral relations and also some development work. It's a really cool job. Today I was drafting a briefing for our beloved Bloomfield, and working on some really cool development projects in Vanuatu. So yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to share some tips and tricks with you guys if any of you are interested about how to, get into MFAT. Yeah, so that's me. I'll pass to Ara.
Tainui te waka, waikato te awa, Ngāti Haua, Ngāti Mahanga, Ngā Hapu, Uruko mona aramiro ngā mare, aramiro tairakana tēnei, e mihi ko atu ki a koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, my name is Ara, aramiro tairakana. If Talia is the baby of this panel, I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. I first started in MFAT 15 years ago now. Before that, I was born and bred in Christchurch. I went to St Albans Primary School, Heaton Intermediate, and Burnside High School. At Canterbury, I studied political science and languages, English and Māori and linguistics. No, not English, French and Māori and linguistics. And I did my honours in political science as well. And then I came straight out of my honours degree into MFAT. And I had a first role in our Americas division, where I was responsible for countries at the southern cone of South America, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay. I moved out into our environment division, working on whales, the animal, not the country. I then got a posting to Taipei for 2 years to learn Mandarin. My full-time job was to be at UD there, learning Chinese. And then I moved into Beijing, into the embassy, working on trade and economic issues. I then left MFAT for a while. I went to the US and did a master's degree in international relations. And then I worked in the private sector as a consultant for a few years in Washington, DC and in London. And then I've come back now 3 years to Wellington. And in that time, I've worked on APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation meetings that we hosted just last year. Then I worked in the Beehive in the office of Nanaia Mahuta. I came into the COVID Policy and Coordination Division that Rachel Spencer now works in. And for the last 4 months now, I've been in our United Nations Human Rights and Commonwealth Division, and I'm the new head of our human rights team. Also looking forward to answering any questions that you have.
Awesome, thank you. So you can really, hear the kind of, especially from Rachel and Ada, the kind of breadth of a career at MFAT really offers, and you can really travel far and wide. I think something probably that Talia and I are looking forward to doing in the near future. Now, listen, we're going to have plenty of time for questions. And on questions, if you'd like to, just feel free just to turn your camera on and raise your hand, and unmute yourself, and then we will call your name if your name is displayed at the bottom, which it looks like most people's is. So just feel free to raise your hand and turn on your camera if you do have a question. But before, I'm just going to run through a bit of information about this particular intake for policy officers as a graduate. So we're looking for our next intake at the graduate level, which is Policy Officer 1 level in our graduate program. And you'll join as a full-time employee and starting from November 2022 and also, or if you prefer, February 2023. So there's 2 start times for that same cohort of graduates. So we're looking for a really broad range of life experiences. So any kind of walk of life perspective, degree, discipline, life experience. Your grades are great, but they're not the be-all and end-all for what MFAT is looking for. We really do seek a diverse range of people and experiences. We're really interested in hearing about your interests, your motivations outside of your education. We're really interested in your community work, if you have that, areas where creativity, whatever it is that makes you a person, we're really interested in hearing that. And our application process is set up to facilitate that information. So the reason we do that is we're looking for a broad range of people because we work in such a broad environment, and we can utilize those skills and abilities throughout our network. So if you have cultural or language skills, that's fantastic. It is not essential, but it's great to see. If you excel in community work, fantastic. If you've got excellent academic, if that's your thing, awesome too. Please don't be hesitant in applying because of potentially you know, what you've heard about MFAT, which I think a lot of us here will probably know. And historically, it's being guilty probably of having quite a narrow focus of recruitment. That is no longer the case. So please put yourself forward through this process. To be eligible for our graduate program, you need to be a New Zealand citizen or have submitted an application. You need to have a bachelor's qualification in any field, so it doesn't have to be politics or law. It can really be anything. I work with marine biologists and that kind of thing within the ministry. So the requirements are few, but you will also need to be able to maintain an appropriate security clearance. So that's where that citizenship aspect comes in. So applications open 4th of March. They close midnight 25th of March. You'll then go through online assessments in April, which include cognitive testing, video introductions, and a written exercise. And from there, if you're successful, you'll then go into an individual interview, and then offers will be made in kind of early to mid-May. And as I said earlier, starting in November or February next year. So that's kind of the key information. And I think now we're going to move on to Q&A. So please raise your hand if you've got any questions for any of our panelists or all of our panelists on our experiences working in the ministry, working for the government, or any questions about our application process. So have we got any questions from the floor? Okay, we've got one here. It's not able to speak out at a location, maybe in the library. So you're a student here at UC, and you're interested in working at MFAT. You've mentioned the requirement of citizenship, but I was wondering if there are any opportunities for me in my current situation or potential future residency. I can answer that unless anyone else wants to jump in. So it'll depend on your circumstances. In terms of what it requires, we do have non-citizens working at MFAT. However, it'll really depend on the circumstances. In this particular case, it might be worth actually just reaching out to our recruitment team. So that's at graduate recruitment at mfat.govt.nz. So that's one word, graduate recruitment. And just let us know of your particular situation. For our graduate program, you need to either be a citizen or be in process of gaining citizenship. But there are other opportunities potentially within the ministry that are not in our graduate program, which you may be eligible for. So please reach out to that email address with details of your situation, and they will be able to advise you on that. Any other questions? Okay, maybe
Sanjay,
enough hearing.
Sorry, Sanjay, there's another question on the chat there.
Great. So will the interview be in Wellington? Also, will there be an assessment centre or just an individual interview? Actually, does any of our panelists want to, or maybe I can ask Renee to jump in if there'll be an assessment centre this year, or has the COVID situation changed that?
Kia ora koutou. Sorry, I was going to be a virtual fly on the wall, but here I am. My name's Renee. I'm with the recruitment team at MFAT, and I am looking after our graduate campaign this year. In answer to the question, so with the continuing twists and turns with COVID, and given our red alert setting at the moment, that's highly unlikely that we'll be hosting an assessment centre and in-person interviews. So we are looking to host some virtual job fairs before the application process closes.